Okay, this is number 5 of the archive of the Facebook pages that I put in over a period of 2 or 3 years. This is probably going to be the final one because from now on I'm going to be working more in YouTube and trying to develop that particular site. So I'm doing this a little differently. I'm going to start from somewhat the ending of when I stopped, which was around when I was 85 and still alive. And I'm going to work back to, I think it's September of 2019, which was up to the 4th archive. So this is the 5th archive, and let's get started. And well, as I say, we're doing it differently. Maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse, but this is what it is. And there's a lot of things we're going to have to cut out because I kept going on the daily, this history in Lethbridge little project that I had been doing over the years, and because there were more people all the time watching the news groups, I kept that going each day as much as I could. And I'll cut most of them, if not all of them, out, but they're there in the real world. So we'll move through here and see what we can find. Oopsie daisy. Let's go back one. This particular article, again, I began to think a little negative about things, I guess, but I was correcting the Herald. This time they said that Plaxton was... let me read it for you. This article goes on to state that Dr. Plaxton served as superintendent, but before that it points out, I was hoping a reader of the day would catch the mistake the Herald reporting that so I would have again to one to the point of the error. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I was hoping a reader of this day in Lethbridge history would catch the mistake in the Herald reporting so I wouldn't have again pointed out an error. But I think it's important to try and keep our history correct. Besides, as a kid, I liked the old A.J. Watson. The article goes on to state that Dr. Plaxton served as superintendent for nearly 20 years, and that he was which would make Dr. Plaxton... Okay, let's read it again. The Herald article goes on to state Dr. Plaxton served as superintendent for nearly 20 years, but these two items from the day in Lethbridge history this month show that A.J. Watson served as superintendent for 27 years, which would make Dr. Plaxton, who I also admired, the second longest serving superintendent. So there I am, making these corrections again. I'm sure that made me popular. And now we have to figure out how to get out of here. And here we go. I was running out of ideas for the daily little item each day, a little bit of history. And that's one of the reasons I gave up. I was also getting bored with the fact that they seem to be going around in circles all the time talking about the same thing. Anyway, on the way out, these are the things that I did. I started working with emojis, quizzes, and so on. I try to read what it's saying, and then I think I would give the answer. TV Dictionary, Firehouse Subs, Burger King. See, there, Burger King, that makes sense. Or Domino's Pizza, yeah. This is an answer sheet. An emoji Pictionary quiz, famous whatevers, famous music bands. And the birth of the street. I put sent this into the Herald because of the fact that they were talking about the Bentley building. This is an item I did a few years ago, matching the first buildings with the same location just a few years ago. and the part that they're referring to in the article, a Bentley block. You can read it as you would like. I think it has something to do with the fact that it was an historic site, but now one of the fellows that owns it wants to make changes, and therefore it may not survive. Council denies application to demo Bentley block. Yeah. Then there was the convent. Again, I'm running afoul with the newspaper, which states this is they're talking about the original St. Aloysius Convent, thinking this is the original, but the original was really this one here down on 9th Street. This only came up in the late 1940s. So I made another correction and probably a few more enemies. Come on, move it. Then I did an index of the people, the old timers that were living in Colehurst. I did a number of, a little bit of work on different local histories, found them quite interesting. And here I published the index. Musicals, trying to remember them from the 50s. Then I had a series called What's It? Things that you just don't really see much anymore. I think I had 100 of these, and it was quite popular. Things you don't really see much of anymore. And we seem to have come to the end of something here. Whoops, we're back. Ice cube. We even had one of these ice cubes in the refrigerator I grew up with. Money machine from the bus driver. How many of these do you recognize? This on the right here is number 76, is a way of copying. Mercurco. The old dining room set from the 50s. Things you just don't see much about anymore. Remember the old Christmas trees with the candle lights? Cracker Jacks? Water bottle? Any you don't recognize? Stetner. Tubes. Remember, tires had tubes. TV dinners. TV dinners. Move it, TV dinner. Some of them seem to go pretty fast. Sorry about that. Then I did a little item, there was an item in the paper about Charles Stewart, the mountain, getting a name change, and I did a little series on that. Then I reminded people about the yearbooks that were still on the university site and what ones we still needed. Things that you don't see much of anymore. One on the right is from, I'd say, the 1960s. Then a series on Thomas Blackiston, and I imagine this is on separate on the site, on the YouTube site. The whole story of Thomas Blackiston. But I did it as a series in the on Facebook, daily, little few pictures each day. Come on, let's move it. Still working on Blackiston here. Come on, move it. This is the classroom. And we're back to what's it. Then there was a series of George Mercer Dawson that I also did. And that will be separate on the YouTube channel. And here's a little section on El Dorado, the wonderful things you're going to find in Western Canada. A little bit of propaganda there. Again, what's it? And this was the story of the airline that could be found in the Rocky Mountains near Coleman. It was a plane that crashed in the 1946, January 1946. I remember at the time because one of my classmates, I think it was Muriel Nugent, but I'm not sure, had a relative that I think was on that plane. And this is what remains there. Hikers go up there all the time and visit it. This will probably be on the site, it should be. And then the ads that you just don't see anymore. Too skinny to have fun. They talked about being skinny. Nowadays they talk about being too fat. So there you go, times are changing. And moving on. I think we're moving on. Possibly we're moving on. Give it a little break. There we go. And some rock fossil collection. Well, this is sort of what do you remember with having from when you were a kid type thing. 49th Parallel, a movie about supposedly the 49th Parallel. An old movie. And an old cigarette card that I found a picture of from between 1875 and the 1940s. Cigarette companies often included collectible cards, and this is one where the Lethbridge Viaduct. I remember visiting the factory of W.D. and H.O. Willis when I went to the coronation in 1953. Then I did a little series on Pullman trains. For those of you who had no idea what a Pullman train was, or a Pullman car, I guess it would be. And we're going to get through this one. And then I did a series, a whole bunch on school pictures that I inherited from the Hamilton people. I didn't know what to do with them at the time that the school was dissolved. And so I put them up. Of course, there's quite a bit of interest. Whoops. This was a little series on Castle Mountain. Astronomer named Group Captain Haig is the person that Mount Haig is named after. And he was an observer of the group that was surveying the 49th parallel. That's how he got his claim to fame. There's the Haig Mountain and Lake, I guess. And it's just part of West Castle. It's over on the left there. And this is about the fire in 1935 at Waterton. Came very close. And are we going to get through here? I then did a series also on Glacier and Waterton, and it is on the site now, on the YouTube site. Needs a little work, but it's there. And we'll see if we can get through here. Whoops, that was another picture of the Waterton section. You'll see it when you look through the YouTube. And we're now back to black. Not quite sure what the significance of the black is. And we're still going across the park. Sort of. not very quickly. And back to the school setting. This is in the Civic Center. This is the section on Waterton, and a fellow that has had exhibits at Waterton, Brent Laycock, who is quite the painter, I'm going to say young fellow. Well, he was a young fellow when I first heard about him. And his work is now, he has a stamp of him. Another Lethbridge area guy was Onar Bain, who was born in Lethbridge in 1923. And there was two brothers. I guess they were twins. I think so, yes, twin brothers. And Conrad was the one that was really in a lot of productions, and his twin brother showed up in at least one section. And we're moving along here. There's the Conrad and the bowler, but if you look at the two pictures, it's the same picture. Instead of trying to find a picture of each one, they just turned it around and pretended that they were different people. But we know because we checked it out, and it looks like it's the same picture, just reversed. And one of Canada's foremost scientists, Bertram Neville Brockhouse, who I had never heard of before, but he was a Nobel Prize winner in physics in 1994. He was born in Lethbridge in 1918. There you go. Again, we're looking at the school pictures that I inherited. And some films again. Ernie Afghanis, Lethbridge boy, who became sports, what would you say, sportscaster for the CBC, did the CFL games, and so on. There he is, young man, older and older. This is the plaque that we got when we arrived at the end of the trek at Fort Macleod. Some pictures of the trek. And this is talking about the Edersons and what is there now. This is from my series of Then and Now that I did, 20 years ago. And about P.O. Enerson, who had the Enerson motors and died in a plane crash. That was the year I was at Trinity down east in grade 11. I read the paper from Lethbridge all the time, so I remember a lot of things that happened the year I was away. This is talking about how he came to fame. And we move on. Hamilton again. Come on, move it. Catch up, catch up. This is a series I did on Pyramid Motors. Since then I've got a lot more information, which I will probably be making a series on YouTube. Finally found the picture of what it looked like in 1926 when it opened. Enerson's on 9th Street and 4th Avenue. And Joseph Sharrock, again a Lethbridge boy who did well in science, founder of the geosynchronous communication satellite industry, which we are now part of every day in our life. And moving along. And this is a sports section. Do you recognize who these people are? Well, I recognize some of them, and for the other people, there was an answer page which didn't seem to show up. Again, the sports. And Ashley Stacey, a rugby player from this area. And did you know Diane Servenet, born in Lethbridge 54, is a Canadian artist, singer, actress, and producer. Eldest of 9 children, grew up in Innisfail, moved to California in 1980. Supposedly has shown up in these particular movies. This was a picture of the Wilson staff in a year or two after I started teaching. And we marked them all. This is the original picture, and I asked if anybody knew who they were, and that's why the next picture, the one that you just saw, was the following picture where we actually gave the names. Remember, we're working backwards in this little series, unless I can figure out how to do the same job by reversing the film, which may be possible to make it in the correct group. Here's a man named Parks, who was a city policeman in later years. And the oldest geezer is going under the knife, so this series is ending. If interested in having it start again in the future, let me know. Well, I was about to enter the knife when the doctor found more things wrong with me, and so they decided, or I decided, that it wasn't worth doing it if I wasn't going to be cured anyway. Back to the pictures. The Hamilton people. If you recognize anybody, you can stop the film and go back and have a look. Come on. And again, this must be an artist from Lethbridge who made it big. Famous people in Lethbridge connection, Duncan Regehr. Born in Lethbridge in 1952. Who knew? Back in Hamilton. Come on. Then I did a series on proper, and I guess I'm going to hear from my friend Siri, am I? Anyway, maybe not. This is the different decades and what the trend was in clothing at the time. I did a series on that, different decades. Women, men, children, I think, children. And we're moving along here, sort of, I think. Oh, there's some, I'll try and put this in as a film in on YouTube so you get a better look at it. But it originally started as a daily share that I put on my YouTube channels. Let's move on here. All right, come on. Leisure suits. Finely dressed people at different decades, or different parts of each decade. And moving along. And this was a series of the aerial views of northeast, the Lakeview area, 1954, and as it looked in 1962. And over in this area here, I believe that's part of our corner right there, I think. And house wasn't quite built yet. This is looking southwest, probably from that big grain elevator, I'm not sure. Looks like it might have been, although it's, yeah, I think it is. Anyway, maybe an airplane. And it's looking at Henderson Lake. You can see the road going Memmergrath Drive there, the railway tracks at the front, and Dieppe Boulevard is this part in the center here. Then I did a series based on map of Lethbridge on coal, drive-in. That should be part of a series on movie houses in Lethbridge, if I get around to it. Come on, move on. Up. This is a series I've also got inherited from grade 9 graduations. This would be a couple of years behind me. This looks like Barbara Simpson here. Alf Pratt and Holland. Not sure what his first name is anymore. And the teachers are over here. I don't recognize quite a few faces for sure. This is a Dayglow, I believe. Graduation 1953. Well, I graduated from the junior high in 51, so 2 years after me. This is the trek, summer trek of 74, where we took our audiovisual production across the province. These are pictures of Canada's different places that we visited that particular summer. Alberta Summer Tour. These are all the places we went to. And this was the year before when we went across from Emerson, Manitoba to Fort Macleod. And these are the people we met on the way, following the route of the original mounted police. Little magazine we put out at the time. Newspaper. This is a stampede of elephants. It looked like they got away from a midway in Cranbrook. Brenda Lee came to Lethbridge, did a little sing-song. There she is in later years. And this is a series I did on the prisoner of war camps, identifying the various buildings. Again, that should be part of a series that I did on the POW camp. We'll see if it comes to light on the YouTube channel. This would fit in as well. These are the prisoners that were working at the Civic Center, and when I was in the Wolf Cubs, we were coming home from Cubs one day and we found this uniform buried beside the church, which was the lower picture. And this is about a fire that occurred. I believe this was exhibition grounds. Stories all there for the read. Big fire, I think, was 1925. Cyclists and drivers of horse-drawn vehicles, you're warned. You can't be out after dark, it would appear. And here I am talking about new arrivals to the yearbook collection at the university. This is talking about the close down of the Rialto Theatre. Again, would fit into our movie section. Lights flickered on, flickered off. And 6 businesses burned down. And that's where Enerson Motors had originally been. We talked about that before. Under fires, this would be. Old Geezer wishes you all a happy Easter. Then I talked about the Georgia Strait. You can see where I was running out of ideas to keep it local. So we got a little further afield than I probably should have. These are some things, beautiful technology of the 20s. It's not an Apple Watch, but it will show you the route that you're following just on your wrist. And this was an April Fool's joke, I believe, for they said that the university is going to be set up at the old YMCA. John Lee Hooker, blues musician. He must have come to Lethbridge, yes. And then this was a visit to the dinosaur egg site when it first started. I haven't been there for years. The tartans of Canada. Bicycles. This was interesting to me because it shows you what kids were putting on their bicycles back in the late 40s. And I recognize all this stuff. Some of which I still have, I think. I'm not sure if I have that. I think I have that little wrench set. The clips for your pant legs. And I had a Schwinn. This looks like a roll fast. They didn't have Schwinns in Canada. Mine came from Great Falls. And then later on, these were all 1 gears. And then later on, the English bicycles came, the Raleighs, and so on, and they had 3 gears. It made quite a difference. Medalta, Medicine Hat, when they made all this amazing pottery. We had Medalta plates we used back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And it fell into disuse. I think it was taken over by the thralls. This is showing you how you can tell which pictures of which mine is which in the Lethbridge area. And using horses underground. And the site of number 6 mine is now Legacy Park, and they're working on it as we speak. And if we can get this thing working here, well, quite an achievement. And these are just little leftover pictures that we inherited from the Herald back in the mid 70s. Our Trek group, as a money maker, we would send them out to people that were in them and see if they would donate something towards their cause. Some of them did. It was nice of them. This is just a potpourri of the pictures. This one happens to be the old St. Patrick's School. And this was the Dainty Hospital, maternity hospital on the north side, and this picture here is what is there today. This is Galt Hospital. And this is a flashback of the MacDonald family, lived in Lethbridge in the 60s and put on plays. Most famous was probably Oliver. And pictures of the roundhouse, aerial view of the roundhouse on separating the north and south side, and an explanation of what a roundhouse was about. Another one of our, just a variety of pictures that we inherited from the Herald, showing the sloping of disappearing, and because of the hills, the coulees absorb water and gradually fading away to going level, which may take a few million years, but the guys that live in the house haven't got that long to wait before they have problems. Here's a picture again of the when St. Pat's was built. It would appear as 1927, the Dainty Hospital and the old fairgrounds. The number 6 mine site, and the Galt Hospital showing up again. Don't understand exactly why, but must have been from 2 different sites. And the St. Pat's School. Here's a picture of a flood, and the question is, where is it? And I have a feeling, well, it could be down the river bottom. Yeah, I think it probably is. If not, it's at Waterton, but I think it's the river bottom. Here's Lethbridge House, and it was known as Lethbridge House. They hauled it out of its place on 3rd Avenue, and it was rebuilt, put together up near Lundbreck. And pottery from Medalta. And the old curling rink, which is behind where cable TV is on 3rd Avenue. It was not artificial ice. Now, that could be, I don't think that's right. I think that is the Civic Center, which was built in 1950. I believe so. Russell Haig, Bus Murdoch, Frank Calder, other faces I see. This is the Waterton Dance Pavilion where they had their Jutney dances. You could go in free, and then you would pay, say, 25 cents to do a series of 3 songs at a dance. And so you paid for your dancing, but you didn't pay to get in. And doing some building downtown, Senator Buchanan putting out his big production number probably in the 1947 edition. And there's the picture of Pa, my dad, and Willard, and a little write-up that was a part of that I put on the site as well. And here's a picture of the camp at Canyon Church Camp. Those seats were all destroyed at a fire in about 2016 or so, the big Waterton fire. This is Marshall Auto Wreckers down where the big hotel is, down overlooking the coulees. And it was auto wreckers for many years before they finally got rid of all this crap. Hotel Windsor Hotel on 3rd Avenue, on 1st Avenue rather, it was torn down in probably the 70s. This is putting through the big bridge. Now this would be a Waterton because you don't see a boat like that on the Old Man River anymore. Again, you've got they call it City Hall Annex, but this is the section that used to be St. Pat's School. And Lethbridge has had a number of floods over the years. Here you have them doing some work downtown. This is the old 6 Brewery garden. You can see it's taken with a telephoto lens from the highway that came up past the brewery gardens. And then on the next coulee you can see the cars at Marshall's. And then across the river you can see the university. all punched together. This would be the Lions Pool over on the north side, the original Lions Pool, which opened in the towards the end of the 1940s. It was the first real outdoor swimming pool in Lethbridge. Before that, you could go and swim at the Dungy Old Y, or you could go to Henderson Lake and get eaten by leeches. Collection of old prints from Project Recall, and see if people could identify the street. Whoops, back we go. This was a series I put out showing the different editions and how you could find them. If you're going to explore the old heralds, these old editions are amazing. And there's 57, probably 67. This particular edition, number 5, talked about all the new residences from the 50s, 1954 construction, and who built it and who owned it. Really a lot of information there. This is the Sugar Beet, opened up 1950, I think it is. And they got a special edition for the Tabor Sugar Factory. And the one I remember the best is the 1947. I remember when it came, I was mesmerized by all this information. Kept it for years, decades even. And this talks about coming out 1935 edition of many pages. And a special edition that came out in what do we got here? 1926? Is it? Yeah, I think so. The Herald started in 1907, so they had lots of time to do editions, special editions. And this is the opening of Alan Watson's, or Susie Bodden's school, which was beside Fleetwood. They had an open concept for a while in the 60s until that fell apart, and they put walls up again. This is the famous picture by Orville Brunel of the mayor getting electrocuted or getting shot when he went to grab 2 different microphones that had different voltage going through them and hadn't been grounded, I guess, and they're trying to rescue him during his speech. Made the Life magazine. And this is I asked people to guess who this was. It was Princess Louise Caroline, Alberta, who Alberta is named after. And there she is as a young lady. Quiz time. Now we looked at musicals. These are some pictures I took from the orchestra pit. This was Little Abner, I believe. There's Annie Oakham. Little Abner. Come on, move it. Then I talked about Cheerios. Cheerio yo-yo competitions. They used to go around to different schools and have competitions, and the winner, Fleetwood, was in my class. There she is there. These are the different badges you got for winning different competitions. And Harvey Lowe, a major player in the history of yo-yoing, won the world's first yo-yo contest in 1934. Recently, I got a request that I asked a group of members if they had a Dr. Wilkins French notebook. So it led me to talk about the different staff members. And the day the Paramount Theater opened. Chautauqua. Yeah, maybe that should be included as theaters. Chautauqua. They said that first Chautauqua. In 1917, Lethbridge promoted and hosted the first Chautauqua traveling tent show in Western Canada, bringing entertainment to the culturally starved prairies. This was cards that I found of the kinsman people, and put that together in case anybody had any relatives that were kinsmen. It's a whole series of cards. Again, maybe worth putting on my site, my YouTube site. And flash by. Now this is Fleetwood, and I've discovered that there was a tie-in between the famous Major Bell farm in Saskatchewan near Indian Head, and one of the fellows that was there moved to Lethbridge. He worked for Bell for 6 months as a teamster, later came to Lethbridge and became an uppity guy, and Fleetwood School is named after him. Valentine's Day little effort I put in. And I did a series on the first crossing of the Canadian Rockies, which should also be on my YouTube site if it isn't. Have to check on that. Okay, let's move it through. Move it. First flight across the Rockies from Vancouver to Lethbridge and on to Calgary. Come on. Come on. Let's go. And What's Below, where we put out this amazing little booklet on what's below as you fly time air, but again, it just ran out of steam. First automobile. A movie that was made, and they used sites from Waterton. Green screen, because there's no buildings like that in Waterton. This is showing that trucks changed since the last 40 years, the size of them. And comparing the old and the new Fairgrounds Gateway. And news article about the Dutch that came in after the war. Ex-servicemen get their lots for $1. And anything happening here? This was a series I did on the Lethbridge Herald and all the staff members there were back when? 1983. I also have a different year one that I've never put up. Maybe I'll do that someday. And the Henry rifle and the bullets that were found in the river bottom from the last great Indian battle between the Crees and the Blackfoot. Thousands turn out to see the Eugene Eli at the fairgrounds. Then I did an article also on YMCA and how I was scared to death by the radiators that were reflecting in the pool. Do a series on strange stories. They caught someone trying to blow up the high-level bridge. That's an interesting one. Then I did a thing on beards, what they were called. And compared the grueling cross-country race back in 1903 with the cross-country races they were having in 1970s, when as a result we bought a new Volvo because they were tough. But the car was put together in Nova Scotia by people that had just started working there, and they made a few mistakes putting the car together. There's the old fire hall in Lethbridge. I did a little series on comparing the map with the buildings that were found on the map. Want to be a detective. There they are. That was a site of the picture. I ran into a picture of Lethbridge's honey wagon used to clean out the toilets back in 1907 days. Lovely job. And a series on Lethbridge buildings. Gone and mostly forgotten. And Ron Sakamoto, again, people that have done well from Lethbridge. Model of Lethbridge in 1885. And I'm not sure who did this, but it shows what the buildings were at that particular time. And comic books, a little story of how they evolved over the years. And hunters in the early part of the 1900s. And the Toothpick Hotel. There's something in construction these days I don't understand. When you see all the pictures that are getting bombed in the Ukraine and the cement building still outline, you can imagine those bombs hit this area, everything would be ash. We don't make them out of cement. Although we did make a lot of them out of cinder blocks after the war. Not the tall ones, I guess, but jitney dances, very popular in Waterton. In fact, I think that's what they had all the time, but all the time I was ever there. pictures of Ellison Mills to see if they could spot which picture was older. And a little bit of thing about cats. Over the years, I've had some run with cats terrorizing birds. I thought one of might get a city cat bylaw, but I'm overreacting. In the 13th century, Pope Gregory basically declared war on cats of the world. There you go. Read it. This is December 2020. Okay, going back here. We need one on average number of cigarettes. Interesting, but hardly much to do with Lethbridge. But this was Lethbridge. This is talking again about Shackelford and the arrangement of the grabbing two microphones. And it was in Life magazine, as I mentioned, and somebody asked if they could see the picture of the girl that caused all the commotion. And there was Donna Glock, and pictures of when she was older, and she died in 2015, age 77. And her older sister had died passed away in 1981, Mrs. Sylvia Hunt, nee Clark, at the age of 46. So she died much younger, the older sister. And there's a story about them coming to my stage show that I put on at home one Saturday morning. They were the only people to show up. Merry Christmas from the Old Geezer. And there we are. Then we did a series on the Hardy Boys books, which I used to read a bit. All the language was First World War. I had no idea what they were talking about in some cases, because it had been 40 years later, and the world had changed. Heliograph, I remember, was one of the words. And then I did a thing on old cars. And that's December 18th. This is from the car show, and I think that's enough for today.